Okay. Hello, good morning, Vancouver. Good evening, Budapest, and everyone in between. Welcome to Conversations with Nurit. And I am Nurit. And today, my guest is Burt Harding. Burt Harding is speaking to us today from Vancouver, BC, in Canada. And he is an author, a spiritual teacher, a speaker. He's the founder of the Awareness Foundation, and he gives lecture courses and seminars on super sentience. Did I say that correctly?
Sentience.
Sentience. Okay, we'll hear about that a little bit later. But for me, it's a very special occasion to be interviewing Burt today. Because not just because of it, he's only been teaching spirituality since the 80s or even earlier, but he happens to be my own teacher's, who is my husband, my own teacher's first teacher. I don't know if you knew that you were his first teacher, and you have influenced his life tremendously. And as a result of that, my life has been influenced tremendously. So, this is not what came first, the chicken or the egg. It's very specific here. There was Burt, and then there's Gabor, and then it's my turn. Anyhow, so I'm very happy to be speaking with you today because of that. And my first question actually has to do with an interview that you had with Rick Archer from Buddha and the Gas Pump. And the reason I wanted to ask you that question is because it had a tremendous impact on me. It actually changed my life. One of your answers, and I'll read it to you. But before that, I'll read to you what you said. But before that, I just want to give you a little bit of a background. At that time, Gabor and I had just been seeing each other for about 6 months, and it was very short time after my own awakening with him. Prior to that, I've been for over 40 years on a search, and up until that point, all of my search was intellectual, and I didn't know it. Of course, mind doesn't see itself. So at that time, when I was with Gabor, and I started to discover this, it was very hard for me to accept that some of my teachers from the past were actually teaching me from an intellect and not from a real experience. And there was a real battle inside me. And it was only when Gabor showed me this video with your answer, which I'm going to read to you in a moment, that the light went on and I got it. And now you'll see what I'm talking about in a second.
Okay.
So you said, I must state this, that although I became a teacher and I wrote this book and I appeared on TV, this was, by the way, 2011, and I appeared on TV, it wasn't until I arrived in Vancouver and I had a relationship in the year 2000 that it became so difficult, this relationship, that I felt like catch-22, damned if I do, damned if I don't. And I realized at that moment that all I knew was what I read and what I heard. And I realized how ignorant I was. And as strange as it may seem, it was the very awareness of my own unknowing at that moment that opened me up to the fact that I am a human being, a being playing the role of Burt. And then you added, what was missing was the fact that everything that I knew, even though it was very moving, it touched me and changed my life, even the Bhagavan's appearance, you were alluding to the vision that you had of Ramana Maharshi.
Right.
Yet it was still intellectual. I wasn't living from it until the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you remember that.
Oh, yes, yes.
Please tell me more. I tell you that changed my life when I heard that, because I had wished some of my teachers would have had that kind of humility and courage, and it takes a commitment to truth to come up to be able to say something like that in an interview.
I'll make it brief. I was always interested in psychology, and I was working as a physiotherapist in Toronto at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And while studying psychology at the same time, that's when I had a vision of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. And then after a while, I began to think it's a hallucination, because that's what a psychologist would think.
Yeah.
But 6 months later, I saw his picture on the cover of a book. And I actually cried, because I said, my God, this is real. And then I left my job, and then I started teaching yoga after that. Now,
Mm.
however, he talked about the mind, and the mind being thought, which is not as real as we think it is. Now, my experience with psychology, I was always fascinated with the mind and the power of the mind. And as Gabor would probably tell you, I was very much into understanding the mind, the power of the mind, you know, and I was all gone into it. However, in the year 2000, during a conflicted relationship, it was so bad. I realized I didn't know anything.
Mm.
I thought I had all the answers, but there was no way to reach her. She was emotional, upset, of course, and I wasn't even compassionate enough to really say, well, you know, I could understand her. There was this feeling that I was like saying to myself, you know, she doesn't understand that emotions are not real and thoughts are not real and all this. But anyway, I went into the bathroom and I actually cried, and I said, I don't know anything. And I was so convinced of that I was ignorant. Everything that I studied fell apart. And at that moment, there was a light in the room, in the bathroom, and I heard just like a voice saying to me, there's nothing to know. There's only here and now.
Wow.
There are no answers to life. You see? And I felt such an incredible peace. It was so beautiful. As a matter of fact, the peace that I had then is still with me now.
Fantastic.
And when I walked out, everything was resolved without saying a word.
Wow.
So now the reason I wrote the book that I did, you know, the truth, the world that doesn't want you to know,
Yes.
is I'm very convinced of that, because as I look back on the internet, all the courses being given, all the books being given, the law of attraction, which became a bestseller, and it sold millions, and made the people who made the movie The Secret also became millionaires. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes, I know. I was in that trap too.
Yeah, and I saw how many people were caught on with it. And it hurt me a little bit, because here we are calling it The Secret, and it's not the secret is really who you really are, your true identity.
Exactly.
I am of you. So, so then I began to realize that I had to kind of write about it. And how the book came about was this. I have impaired vision. Which means that my peripheral vision is such that I only can see what's in front of me. My left eye is 70% blind. But it's okay with me. It's fine. That's what is, and that's what is. But then the reason I'm telling you is because.
Sorry, I thought the recording stopped, but it's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's okay, yeah.
At that particular time, I received an intuition that I should go to the beach, which is only about 10 minutes away from where I live here in Vancouver. But because of my vision, I don't dare do it by myself, especially in the evening. But I wanted to go, and at least I felt I wanted to go, but there was this inner energy actually telling me to do this. And I went and sat and watched the sunset. As soon as I watched the sunset, Burt disappeared again. It happened to me in the year 2000. And the moment the sun went down completely, and I was filled with this beautiful feeling of oneness.
Mhm.
But it was so black, I couldn't see my own hands or feet. There were no lights. It was the beach, you see, where I was. And but there was no concern at all. And I found myself walking in that pitch darkness, knowing exactly where I had to go. And I ended up home in about, 20 minutes. And when I got back, I realized that this was such a beautiful experience that I had to write about it.
Mm.
And
Yeah, you start the book by talking about that experience.
right. And the reason for that is this, because it left me with a silence. And it was a second confirmation that truth is not anything. It's a nothingness. It's an emptiness. What it is really is the very essence of life. I call it the heart.
Yes.
And so, excuse me. And so, one thing that I wanted to stress is that people don't like inner silence. They
No,
like
I know.
thinking. They like having ideas. They like to figure it out. They want to understand intellectually,
Yes.
realizing that the silence itself is the answer,
Yeah.
is the being. You see? So because I felt that the world worships the mind, I thought I had to write something about that.
Yes.
Of course, and the law of attraction, which talked about attainment, is true. Yes, the law of attraction works. If a person wants to become a millionaire and they really believe it, and they feel they deserve it, they will have that. You can have anything you want through the mind, but there's one thing that the mind cannot give you, because the mind is thought. It cannot give you
No.
peace. It cannot give you love. It cannot give you beauty.
Yeah.
It cannot give you God, in other words, you
That's
see?
right. Mm-hmm.
You know. So, so then I wrote the book, and also a few months ago, a technique came to me. It's called the 5-step method.
Oh, okay.
And I had many healings happen through it. Now, the 5-step method to freedom, which I called it, was how to enter the emptiness
Oh,
of the heart, how to empty the mind, how to enter nothingness, so that you actually fall in love with it.
wow.
You see? And this is the whole point, to fall in love with nothingness, which of course is called nothingness, which is spirit, really.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's not an object, you know. It's an intelligence. It's omniscient, omnipotent, and omniscient.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, where were we?
The 5 steps.
Yeah, the 5 steps, right. And the 5 steps were 5 ways in which to attain this, enter this nothingness by quieting and mastering the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It was so successful that I have just since I've applied it, I had 3 people. One was a woman who had fibromyalgia. She was bedridden for years, and she doctors didn't know what to do with her. She tried everything, psychiatrists, everything. Nothing worked.
Mm-hmm.
I had her try the 5-step program, and after a month or so, now she's in Australia traveling, something that was her dream, to travel in outback and explore life. And that's exactly where she is right now. I had a young man who was psychotic. His parents wanted to put him in a mental home. He was violent and abusive. But there was one thing his father wrote me, and he said, Bert, he said, he really loves you. He watches your videos. And I said, well, if he's interested, then he might listen.
Mm-hmm.
He did listen. And then I taught him the 5-step program. And within a short while, now he's got a girlfriend, He's got a new apartment and he's got a job. He's an artist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I've had a few other successes. No, I'm not a healer. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really do anything. I just act from what I feel in my heart.
And these 5 steps, do you teach them in a seminar or are they in your book?
I'm going to teach them at the retreat, which I will be doing next year. However, if you have the time, I can go through them, these 5 steps, because I know that you and Gabor would be interested.
Sure.
These 5 steps are very important, but they might take about 25 minutes, half an hour. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now these 5 steps simply lead to the nothingness, to emptiness, and they happen by mastering the mind.
Okay.
Now, do you want me to talk about these 5 steps?
Sure.
Oh, okay. The first step is by sitting very still, and you take a 6 to 4 count breath. For example, you blow out, exhale, and draw the stomach in to the count of 6. Then you hold it for a few seconds. You breathe in to the count of 4 through the nose. Okay, then you hold it again for a few seconds and repeat again 3 times. Now, after you've done that, you have relaxed enough to be able to follow the steps. Now, the first step is this: to actually be with closed eyes and look at the mind, let the mind wander. Let it do what it does. Whatever is happening is happening. And just let your mind wander. Now, we'll do it for 2 minutes. Okay, we're doing it. Wonderful. Okay.
What happens if my mind isn't wandering?
Whatever thoughts are happening, just be able to let the mind do what it does.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now we don't have to keep it for 2 minutes. We're just okay.
You're giving us a sample here.
This is a sample, right? Okay, just remain with your eyes closed. Oh, this is wonderful because you'll be able to feel its impact. Okay, now you've done it, and I ask you, were you able to watch the activity of the mind without getting involved?
Yeah.
And if you said yes, we've done the first step. That's great. Now we move to step 2.
Okay.
Step 2 is watch the activity of the mind again, but this time see them as thoughts. Now they could be images, flashes, whatever, thoughts going by. Just watch them as thoughts. This is very important to call it a thought.
To call it a thought, okay.
To call it a thought, what is happening. So then you do that for about, okay, right now, do it for a minute and watch them. And can you do that?
Yeah.
I just want to hear what you have to say. Okay.
Okay.
Now watch the thoughts as they go by. And it's very important that you see them as thoughts. This means that you don't identify with them, but see them as thoughts. You're already in the second part, learning to be detached, to see a thought as a thought. Remember that on the average, people don't see a thought as a thought.
Right.
They see it as something real.
Right.
They make it a reality. Okay, now we've done that, and we go to step 3.
Okay.
Step 3 is when we watch the thoughts going by, and you're able to say at one point, when there is just a little lapse between thoughts, say, I wonder what the next thought will be.
Okay.
And as you do that, you wait for the next thought. Now, as you wait for the next thought, you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, maybe even more, waiting for the next thought. So there is a gap, and you're very much aware of that gap. Good. Now, usually people have about 2 or 3 or 4 times starting saying, I wonder what the next thought will be. And they get caught again and, so they start again.
Right.
Now, so what we do is progressively that they cut down that process. So if they were not able to succeed, then of course they have to repeat it until they do.
Right.
Provided they have succeeded in being able to create that gap, they go into step 4.
Mm-hmm.
Step 4 is now a little bit different, is that between the gaps,
Mm-hmm.
you allow yourself to be totally silent and feel that silence
Okay.
between thought. Now, feeling that silence, then of course, now assuming we have done it, then I say to you, okay, how did that silence feel to you?
Mm-hmm.
And then people usually say, oh, it felt very relaxing. It felt very nice, of course, and then they repeat it over and over again. You know, this is a series that they keep repeating.
Right.
And begin to find that the silence between the thoughts was not only relaxing, but it actually gave them energy when they began to feel better. After they repeated this 3, 4, 5 times, something else happened. They begin to feel joy, a feeling of joy, a feeling of love. Wow, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
silence is so beautiful, so peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so once they mastered that, then they go to the 5th step.
Mm-hmm.
And the 5th step is this, that the silence within the mind, that space within the mind, that nothingness, that emptiness of the mind is itself everything that we want more than anything, but don't know that we want it. For example, if a person buys a house, why do they want it? Because it gives them security. It gives them
Right.
the comfort of home, right?
Right.
The person wants $1,000,000 is because it gives them power, it gives them freedom. So what they want is not the money itself, but the freedom that comes with it.
Right.
So we want freedom, we want joy, we want love, we want happiness, we want infinity. You know, we want these things. And these things are actually non-verbal. They're not objects. They are the silence itself.
Yes.
Now, when they reach the 5th step, what they do is pick out one of them that they resonate with. Many people pick up joy or infinity or love, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And then as they pick it up, what they do is focus on it. Focus on this word. Let's say you picked up the word joy
Mm-hmm.
and feel that word joy and stay with
Mm-hmm.
Stay with it as long as you can, you see, for about 5 minutes. There's no need to be any longer than that. And then the moment you come out of this 5 steps, you've done the 5 steps, right, assuming, okay? You begin to feel this joyous feeling. It actually takes over the whole body, mind, organism, and you begin to feel the energy. Now, what I have found is that when people have come to the point, because once you do 1 step, if you succeed, you don't need to do it anymore. Then you do just 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you succeed with 2, then you're ready for the 3, not before.
Mm-hmm.
See? And then so on and on. By the time they reach the 5th one, they are able to maintain a state which is spiritual, really, which is spirit, which is nothingness, because joy is not something that you can put in words, it's something you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start feeling from the joy, the energy itself that fills you, you begin to live from it.
Right.
Itself brings healing, you see,
Mm-hmm.
physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have asked me, they said, Bert, after I've done the 5 steps, I found that I had gone to a psychiatrist and psychologist, and they told me to go back to the past, and I know exactly what they're talking about
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know whether Gabor told you but I've done 30 years of hypnotherapy,
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I've had about 1,000 clients, I guess. And what I used to do is I used to take them to the past and go back to the source of the problem to overcome the problem and deal with it, which is, of course, which is what therapy really does, is go back to the source of the problem and and then see what is happening. But what I found with the 5 steps, which has happened to my clients, which I'm very happy to report, is that they didn't have to go to the past at all. They didn't have to remember what happened. Because what happens when they reach nothingness is that they actually see that the problem they think they have is also nothingness.
Yes.
And by actually seeing it at the moment, that very seeing, this is not intellectual. This is not making up your mind and saying, oh, well, it's all an illusion, blah, blah, blah. No, you actually see it as nothing. And the moment you see it as nothing, it falls away.
Yes.
I've had people overcome the fear of death by simply doing the 5 steps, and actually saw it by actually experiencing the fear, and then finally seeing that the fear really, on the 5 level, that was really just a thought. It was just a thought which they had to believe to be real.
Right.
It also fell apart, you see. Now, of course, I didn't do justice to the 5 steps, because when I do 5 steps, we have to get very, very involved, which you cannot do right now. But but the results are, they're steadfast, they're permanent.
I can see that. Yes, that's wonderful.
Yes, it's wonderful, and also it is not intellectual.
Yes.
But another thing that happened, you see, like I had a woman and she had lung cancer. And she said to me, Bert, I don't want to go to the doctor and get chemotherapy. And I said, does prayer help? Does this help? I said, let's try the 5 steps, because that's very effective in quieting. By the time she reached the 5th step, she began to feel better already, She went to the doctor, and she told him, and he poo-pooed my system, but he told her that she had remission.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that anybody healed her. I'm saying that she healed herself by actually entering emptiness, by actually entering the nothingness of the mind. So this is the reason I wrote the book, is because I feel that people place so much importance on what they read. Reading is okay as long as you feel it in the heart.
Yes.
The moment it feels real, that this is not just a word, this is, the moment you begin to live it.
Yes. I love how simple it is. You really bring a beautiful simplicity to this, and I would imagine that for some people that might be a cause for resistance, because the mind doesn't like simplicity.
That's exactly.
But unfortunately, sometimes it takes someone to suffer a cancer or pain to surrender to simplicity. But you explain it very well. So
the 5 steps, they actually allow you, because if you don't succeed the 1st step, I don't have them do the 2nd yet. You see?
Perfect. Yeah.
But for example, with this young man that who is now very happy with a job, and he's doing a job he loves. He was very, very problematic.
Yes.
And very violent. But what happened is that we had to repeat number 1 several sessions until he got it. Finally, one day he said to me, yeah, I got it. That's right. I see these images in the mind. That's thoughts, right? He was thinking that whatever he thought, it was real.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah, I do.
Took him the
Been there, done that. Bought the T-shirt.
Right. So then by the time he succeeds at number 2, then of course he has to stay with it until he succeeds in it, actually seeing thought as thought.
Excellent.
That's a big one. But the moment you see a thought as a thought, you're no longer a victim.
Yeah.
The 3rd, I wonder what next thought will be, wow, you're already being superior to the
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Now, one thing also is that in the West, or here, you know, in our world, we place so much importance on the mind.
Right.
Just think of the mind this way. Think of the moon at night,
Yes.
okay? And when you look at the moon at night, especially when it's full, you know, it lights up. It's almost, you can see it lighting up the
Yeah.
world.
Yes.
Right. But do you know that it has no light at all? It
Exactly.
borrows it from the sun.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's exactly what the mind is. The mind actually borrows it from the heart, from
Mhm.
the essence, from that which we are. You see, I
Yes.
call it the I am.
Mhm.
I am is who you are, and the I am is joy, is happiness. You know, I'm not a young man, but I know joy now. I know happiness and peace now that I never knew in my life,
That's awesome. That's
and
wonderful.
it's there all the time.
Yeah. It shows.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
wonderful.
And so this is what I'd like to shout out to the world: says, don't listen to your mind. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to learn. Don't learn.
Yeah.
Discover. Discover.
Yeah.
You
That's
see?
beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. And
Yeah.
when you begin to discover who you are and what you are, you realize something frightening to the world. You realize you're not a person, you're a presence.
Mhm. Mhm.
You see? The person is always being offended, hurt, angry, guilty, anxious, stressed. I think it was, I read it someplace yeah, on YouTube. There was a video based on a study made in the United States, health study, and they found that 80% of the population in the United States suffer from stress.
Yeah.
Now, the key question is, what is stress? It is self-concern,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Self-concern. Now, if you realize that you are not a person, you are really a presence, the
Mhm.
presence of pure awareness,
Mhm.
which is really the spirit, the nothingness. So if you realize that you are that,
Mhm.
uh,
Where's the stress?
where is the stress?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's no you in the sense that you know you to be the ego doing anything.
Right. Right.
You're not a doer. The doing happens. Like people say, well, Bert, I think these thoughts, but I don't want them. I don't purposely create them. He says, no, you don't.
Mhm.
Thoughts happen,
Yes.
come to you. They come from the past, they come from the environment, they come from everywhere.
Yes.
But the point is that you don't have to be a victim of them once you learn to master the mind and see thought as a thought.
Mhm.
Thoughts will never stop coming. You don't need to stop the mind,
Right. Right. Right.
right? You need to simply allow it and give it space because that's not who you are. Once you know
Wonderful.
you're not that, you're free.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, is the book out yet, Bert?
I heard from my publisher, Amazon already has the ebook.
Oh, fantastic.
People can get for $9, but it's you know you can get it on on what is called that reader.
Kindle?
Kindle, right. So you can
Okay.
get it on Kindle right away now for $9, or you can buy it from the publisher another week or so.
Okay. And I will post your website. Can they pick it up from your website as well?
And they can pick it from my website, but they won't be buying it from me. They buy it from the publisher.
Right. Yeah, that's okay. I will put the all that information at the end of the video so
Oh,
people.
thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you. It's so nice
Well,
talking to you.
Bert, it's just a pleasure talking to you finally. And I can see why Gabor was so talks about you a lot and has been so influenced by you. And I'm really grateful because
Gabor, you know.
yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I do too. And what he's learned, he's been able to pass on to me. So I've obviously have very grateful for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Bert. Thank you so much for speaking with all of us who's ever watching today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. So good night, everyone, or good morning to wherever you are on the planet. And God bless and find your joy.
Wonderful.